Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about, does the Wim Hof method work? So for those of you who don't know, Wim Hof is a Dutch motivational speaker and extreme athlete who came up with his Wim Hof method. And he's considered the Iceman, and he's done a variety of extreme physical feats where he's incorporated his Wim Hof method and attributed that to his success. For instance, he's done some swimming underwater in frigid temperatures where there's been ice. He's also done some very long runs in an ice environment, in a glacial environment, only wearing shorts and I think no shoes. And so he attributes his ability to be able to withstand these extreme temperatures and do outdoor activities to his Wim Hof method. And so with his Wim Hof method, the basic premise is that, humans have been cut off from natural stressors of the environment in this modern age. Things like the howling winds, the frigid sub-zero temperatures, the ravenous wolves. And as a result of that, we've lost our natural resilience as a species and become less resilient to things like microbes and stress, and as a result we have poor sleep and all of this kind of thing, the sort of modern age ills, if you will. And then saying that, to get back to that pristine natural state, we can begin by doing this Wim Hof method, which will help to bring us back to natural resilience. And so crucial to Wim Hof method is some kind of intentional breathing that they do, and as well exposure to cold over a period of time to develop one's ability to withstand it. So I know that there have been, Wim Hof often talks about, scientific studies that support, that his method is working and so on. To my knowledge, there isn't a lot of really conclusive scientific studies that support his claims. But certainly exposing oneself in an active way to any kind of environment that is in a sustainable way will help to stimulate one's immunity, help to stimulate one's health. The purpose of this particular video is not really to talk about the claims of better health and so on that Wim Hof makes, but whether or not the Wim Hof method is an effective form of meditation. And there are some people who swear by it. Now, Wim Hof draws on something called Bhastrika Pranayama, which is something that was taught in yoga, in Hatha yoga, in fact, and that is a form of hyperventilation. And so Bhastrika is sometimes called the fire breath in yoga. There's also a version of hyperventilation, which is called Kapalabhati, skull shining breathing, basically uses the same kind of process where one is forcing a short exhalation and a short inhalation. And so that is a kind of a form of hyperventilation. And in yogic context, the Bhastrika Pranayama is used in particular circumstances. There are very few who use Bhastrika Pranayama as their sole, yogic practice. It's usually just a component of a larger pranayama regime, if you will, or routine that includes slower forms of breathing and some elements of Bhastrika Pranayama. But Wim Hof has basically taken Bhastrika Pranayama to be the primary breathing exercises, and as well to add to that Kumbhaka, which is breath retention. What that basically looks like is a hyperventilation over initially a short period of time, I believe. It might be 30 seconds to 1 minute, and then holding the breath until one begins to cycle again. The thing about Bhastrika Pranayama, or a forced fire breathing, a forced strong exhalation and inhalation, is that it really stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. It really drives us to a fight or flight situation. If one does Bhastrika Pranayama for a long period of time, it creates some additional challenges. So one of the best practices for meditation and actually being able to get into a meditative state is Kriya Yoga. And Kriya Yoga works on the body's central nervous system, in particular to bring the parasympathetic nervous system, which is considered the rest and digest aspect of the nervous system, or like the break in the nervous system, to bring you into a low idle state. And so Kriya Yoga does this very effectively through slow, intentional breathing. And there's a distilled version of Kriya Yoga called Heart Rate Variability Resonance Breathing, which we teach on our channel, which people don't need to have a yogic background to do. It's very simple. All you do is to follow this particular slow breathing pattern, that it starts to induce a freeze response or a galvanic skin response. These are signs of pratyahara, which is internalization in yoga. So you start to get drawn within, you start to get into a meditative state. You start to become internalized and have a meditative experience. And so this contrasts with Wim Hof breathing or Bhastrika Pranayama, which is doing exactly the opposite. But it doesn't bring you into that internalized state where you can start to have changes happen within and you go into a deep meditation. And the reason that Kriya Yoga and heart rate variability resonance breathing works so effectively is because it brings the heart rate and the breath into resonance with each other. And it does this by bringing the breath below a certain threshold. And that threshold is 7 breaths per minute. So if you're breathing at 7 breaths per minute or less, your heart rate and your breath start to come into resonance with each other. Your heart rate will slow down and your breath rate will slow down, and you start to experience signs of the freeze response, of this galvanic skin response in your body. Sort of tingling, it could be in your hands, in your lower lip, tingling throughout your body, and that is a sign that your parasympathetic nervous system is becoming predominant. And you start to become internalized, you start to have inner meditative experiences, right? And you can only have this internal experience when your breath is below that threshold of the 7 breaths per minute. Now, if you're doing Bhastrika Pranayama or Wim Hof breathing, your breath rate is much beyond that. So you're never going to get into a meditative state where you can start to get the benefits of the meditation. It starts to bleed into all areas of your life where you become still and calm because you're not in your sympathetic nervous system all the time. So you're not reacting to every single stimuli. You're calm, you're balanced between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. You might decide to move into action, to engage the sympathetic, to do something dynamic. Or you might be able to just calmly consider the situation and make an effective evaluation of the situation and then take appropriate action. So really it allows you to kind of a shift into a neutral gear. So having that capacity of that inner meditative experience allows you from a neutral place to address things in your life, which is much more effectively than haphazardly moving from thing to thing, reacting to everything. And that can improve your life in all areas, right? Your general state of mind, your mental health, your relationships with others and so on are really benefit from having that meditative experience. And that is something that just doing a form of hyperventilation does not allow. So as you're doing Kriya Yoga, you're going to get that initial freeze response, the initial internalization. But as you go deeper in Kriya Yoga practice or heart rate variability resonance practice, what happens is your breath pattern starts to change involuntarily. And so it starts to shift its amplitude, meaning that it becomes more and more shallow and then it disappears, basically. You're still breathing, but it is very, very, very slight. And that is something that is called the tranquil breath in Kriya Yoga. And what happens is when you get into the tranquil breath in Kriya Yoga and you get drawn into a deeply internalized state where your awareness of the body completely disappears, it feels like you're not breathing at all. It is basically the breath has disappeared and you are drawn into this very deep internalized state, which is called dharana in yoga, which means concentration. It's basically concentration on an internalized void. But you cannot get to those deeper states in meditation if you don't engage the parasympathetic nervous system to bring you into that initial internalized state. And that is something that the Wim Hof method does not allow. That is not a trajectory of their path. They will not get there because they need to slow down the breath. They need to engage the parasympathetic nervous system and have the resulting freeze response in deeper internalization, the tranquil breath, and then deep, deep into meditation. And so when you follow that route, which Kriya Yoga does beautifully as a method for getting there, it will get you into true meditation. You don't have to worry about trying to still the mind because your meditation is happening spontaneously within, and it is deep and it is profound. And it will begin to reveal to you your true inner nature and your true spiritual connection. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.